After a failed super team experiment, the Nets went through a pretty weird phase, and for the first time, it feels like they're going into this upcoming season fully committed to a rebuild. Between the building out of their young core and an active offseason, things are starting to look interesting for Brooklyn. But what can we actually expect from them in 2026, and what can we make of their future? I wouldn't say the Nets were deliberately tanking last season, but they weren't exactly competing. They finished with the number 28 offense, number 23 defense, and won 26 games on their way to 12th in the East. And the bottom 3 offense is so interesting to me because I do wonder what it would have looked like without injuries. Jordi Fernandez came in as a rookie head coach and brought a lot from his time with Denver and Sacramento by putting the ball in the bigs' hands, then running lots of off-ball action to get everyone involved. And there were stretches where the offense looked really good. Cam Thomas got hurt just a month into the season and missed extended time, but in the 25 games he did play in, the Nets had a 115 offensive rating, which actually would have ranked 13th. In the 57 he missed, just a 107, which would have ranked 29th. Obviously, there are other factors at play. The reason for such a big swing, though, is that Thomas quietly started the season as one of the league's best on-ball scorers with the shot creation and difficult shot making to raise the floor of Brooklyn's offense regardless of who was on the court with him. And once he went down, they lost that presence as a half-court shot creator, so their approach had to really shift. That's when Cam Johnson became the first option, and I'd say that worked out about as well as you could expect. For years, Johnson had pretty exclusively been a high-level spot-up shooter with some off-the-catch juice. Well, last season, the Nets started running more action specifically designed to get him free, put the ball in his hands to initiate, and he showed a ton of growth as an on-ball scorer and passer. The only problem was that he also missed 25 games, and much like Thomas, that impact was felt to an extreme degree, falling nearly 10 points to a 103 offensive rating, which would have ranked last by a landslide. Needless to say, the two Cams were at the focal point of Brooklyn's offense. In the limited time they spent on the court together, this team was legitimately good at scoring, and they were still solid when it was just Thomas, although it's important to keep in mind that this is just a 200-minute sample. When it was just Johnson, they were bad, but not quite the worst in the league, and when neither were in the game, they were simply a historically bad offense. Of course, because of injuries, that ended up being the most played lineup of the bunch, so we're looking at nearly 2,000 minutes of disastrous scoring. It goes without saying that those two not sharing the floor much was problem number 1 for Brooklyn. But even with the full roster, they really lacked half-court shot creation. They tried to address that by trading for D'Angelo Russell, and not much changed. Because of a complete lack of downhill pressure, they were an offense reliant on threes who really only had one reliable shooter. Of their top 10 in minutes played, Cam Johnson was the only one shooting above 36% from 3. So they had a bunch of weak shooting role players jacking spot-up threes with a quick trigger, and no creator like Cam Thomas to turn to. What if I told you that you could have the convenience of fast food and the taste of home cooking in one fresh meal? If you're like me and don't always have time to cook for yourself, Factor meals are perfect for you. It's as simple as unboxing, heating it up, and in a matter of 2 minutes, you'll have a fully prepared meal on the table. My personal favorite is the truffle butter filet mignon with a side of potato leek mash and roasted carrots. Not just because it's delicious, but because it's high in protein and fits my goals in the gym. There's so much variety though, and you not only have the freedom to choose, you have the freedom to customize. Maybe you want a chicken breast. Maybe you're looking for a calorie smart meal. Maybe you're vegan. No matter who you are, Factor makes it so easy to eat clean, and that's why I'm excited to bring you guys a special offer. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code HoopVenueFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. You heard that right. That's code HoopVenueFB50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. Brooklyn's biggest move of the offseason was actually to get rid of Cam Johnson. They traded him to the Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr. and a future first-round pick, stacking up on assets while maintaining some semblance of current talent. MPJ and Cam are similar in that they're both big, elite three-point shooters. Cam's advantage is that he's a little bit more versatile with the ball due to his superior handle, decision-making, and passing, whereas Porter's advantage is that his size and elevation make him one of the game's best difficult shot makers. Him and Thomas together is must-watch TV, just off the fact that they're going to be taking and making shots that no other player in the league would even think about. And while that isn't necessarily the best quality on a championship caliber team, it can help drag a weak offense out of the mud. And that's what the Nets are. These are their two go-to scorers. Neither really creates much offense for the guys around them, and that's what the team is gonna have to figure out. So the big question right now is who they're gonna go with at point guard, because they lost D'Angelo Russell to free agency, and they've got a surplus of options, most of which are rookies. I think Nolan Traore brings that sort of traditional point guard look. He's got great vision, high feel, and generally knows how to run an offense. But he's also lengthy and quick enough to get into the teeth of the defense, so there's a little bit of downhill shot creation. With that said though, he hasn't yet shown to be a consistent scoring threat from any level. He's a very weak outside shooter, lacks touch in the paint, and he still has to put on a ton of strength to deal with contact at the next level. So while he can set up the offense and initiate set action, he's not the type of guy to demand the reps of a consistent on-ball creator just yet. The same goes for the 8th overall pick, Yegor Yomin. He's the exact opposite of a traditional PG. He's one of those new breeds of jumbo playmakers, standing 6'9" with a rare combination of size, vision, and passing ability. His quickness and balance at that size also highlight potential downhill shot creation, while he's already showcased great use of pace. Like Traore though, he's a very poor outside shooter and overall a generally weak scorer who doesn't generate much pressure. He also lacks a true off-ball game, and without the scoring to demand touches, it'll probably take a little bit for him to be an impact player. And that also applies to the 26th overall pick, Ben Saraf. He's another big playmaking guard with elite vision, passing ability, and great use of pace. He's also another guy who can't shoot the 3 at all, but more importantly, he doesn't have the burst of the other two, so his development as a shot creator would be more geared around evolving his mid-range game as a weapon to get to off of screens. The most unique prospect of all though was the 27th overall pick, Danny Wolf. He probably would never be listed as a point guard, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Nets kind of scratch the idea of a point guard and use him as a point center because he's a legit 7-footer. When I say point center, I don't mean dribble handoffs and the occasional inverted pick and roll. I mean legit perimeter creation, attacking with a live dribble. He's really mobile for his size and even has the ability to turn his back to the basket and create from the post. Then like the others, he's got the vision and passing ability to legitimately run an offense, but unlike them has shown the potential to step out and hit the 3 ball. The problem though is that he's a really awkward player, having a lot of the skills of a guard, but in a non-guard frame. And while that makes him unique, it also creates limitations. His handle is loose, and he doesn't have particularly elite processing, so he's prone to turnovers. He also struggles with ball pressure and physicality, so it's hard to justify giving him a ton of touches, but then he also lacks an off-ball game and doesn't really do any traditional big things, which makes him another guy that needs a few years of development. In simpler terms, the Nets essentially drafted 4 players who have traditional point guard skill sets but have serious limitations and are somewhat boom or bust. I think their plan for the future is to have 1 or 2 of them hit, giving them a backcourt of the future. But that's more of a long-term project, and I don't really think any of them are NBA-ready impact players. For that reason, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go with the newly acquired Kobe Buffkin. Buffkin's a third-year guard who's had a history of recurring shoulder issues. If he's able to string together a stretch of healthy basketball though, he's got the handle, agility, and touch you'd want in a point guard, and he's shown some flashes of being a legitimate threat from outside. Of course, this is all speculation, and we don't know how these players pan out or who the Nets will even put in positions right away. What we do know is that their go-to lineups will start with a point guard, Cam Thomas, and Michael Porter Jr. From there, it'll be interesting to see what they do because they have a lot of solid role players. They traded a 2nd-round pick for Haywood Highsmith, who's a pretty high-level defensive wing that's also shown to be a reliable shooter. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter. Nick Claxton is still around, and he's one of those rare 5s who can switch onto any position and hold his own. A front court of Highsmith, Porter, and Claxton has a lot of interior resistance, lots of length, and can cover most positions. Off the bench, Day'Ron Sharpe is another versatile defensive 5. He also brings some skills on offense like his passing and more importantly his monster offensive rebounding. In an offense that lacks playmaking or easy shot creation, dominating possessions could be a good pathway to getting points on the board. The rest of the rotation will be filled with Thule wings and forwards who all bring different skills. Zaire Williams, Terrence Mann, Keon Johnson, just to name a few. The team is deep, the team is young, and that's both their biggest strength and weakness. They don't have a single 30-year-old on the entire roster. They have 5 rookies, multiple 3rd and 4th year players, and that means they have a lot to be excited for in terms of rebuilding and player development, but it also means they'll be running lots of lineups with low impact players. The role players they have are the types of guys you want to have around stars, and they lack that high-end talent. So I honestly have no idea what they'll end up doing with their rotation. The only starters I'm 100% confident in are Thomas, Porter, and Claxton. After that, it could be any one of the PGs, any of the wings, and who knows what the bench will look like. The offense will go as far as the shot making of Cam and Porter takes them. They'll hit good heights, but as a team, they'll also struggle to create quality shots against basically every defense. Defensively, I like what they can do with the front court, but they're still going to be rolling out lineups with multiple liabilities or awkward fits, especially in the backcourt, and that interior defense can only get them so far. Basically, I'm expecting a full-on tank. Does that mean 15 wins? Does that mean 20 wins? I'm not 100% sure. What I am sure of is that they're still looking for a franchise cornerstone, and they own their first round pick in a stacked 2026 draft class. So if they prioritize the development of their rookies this season and they're able to land a top 3 pick, with all of the young role player talent they've already got, they could vault themselves into a really nice future.